Let's bring in CNN legal eagles here. We have one analyst, Paul Callan, criminal defense attorney Jami Floyd as well. Thanks to both of you for being here. This situation of analysis, aggravating factors, mitigating factors, big words, sounds complicated. The simple version is they're going to look at what's before them and decide whether it is worthy of death. Paul, I'll start with you. Only one juror, if it has to be unanimous, has to decide she doesn't get the death penalty, and then they move on to life for 25 years, possibly parole, all that the judge will decide. Would you say that the odds are in favor of Arias not getting the death penalty?
I would say that she's on a fast road to the death penalty at this point. With the jury coming back yesterday in, I think, slightly less than 2 hours, finding that this was an exceptional cruelty case, triggering this death penalty hearing, that's highly suggestive that all of the jurors think, at least they're leaning toward it as a death penalty case, because you have to consider, Chris, if one juror didn't want the death penalty, that juror could have chosen a battle yesterday and fought back. 2 hours, they come back and say, let's go to the next phase. So I think she's in trouble at this point. And you know, we'll see. She's made public statements that she wants the death penalty. If she gets on the stand and advocates that, wow. I think her lawyers have a tough job on their hands.
Jami, give me the other side of this, because it could be, counter to Paul's point, that it is cruel on its face. It is exceptionally cruel. It's cruel by any definition. But now to look at it specifically as whether it's worthy of the death penalty could be a little different in the minds of jurors. How do you see it going down?
Yeah, I tend to agree with Paul. But I'll take your bait and I'll give you the other side. First of all, jurors are aware that there are other cases more heinous, more cruel, more depraved than this. I could cite just two. Jeffrey Dahmer comes to mind, cannibal, refrigerated young boys, and did not get the death penalty. Charles Manson, notorious serial killer, did not get the death penalty, and there are many more, and jurors are aware of that, even though they're not to expressly consider it. Also, she's a woman. And we don't like putting women on death row in this country or in Arizona. 3,000 people or more are on death row. Only 63 of those are women. Only 3 in Arizona, a state that has 125 or so on death row. So it's not something we do in this country. And so that cuts in her favor. All that being said, I think it is a very, very difficult path for the defense, especially given that you're working, Chris, with a death-qualified jury. These are people who've already said from jump that they can impose and will impose the death penalty if they feel it's appropriate.
All right, so if you both think that we're going in that direction, what is the strongest case for why this deserves the death penalty? Paul, I'll start with you. Jami, you follow on that.
The strongest case that it deserves the death penalty is the cruelty of the killing, and also the pre-planning of the killing. I mean, it's the functional equivalent of hiring a hitman to kill somebody. I mean, she planned it carefully. She executed it in the most painful way possible by stabbing him, 29 or 30 times and then shooting him. And so I think you could make a case that it's an exceptionally cruel case. And statistically, just getting back to that interesting point that Jami raised, we very rarely put women to death in the United States. But I was looking at the stats. Of the 12 women who have been put to death in the recent past, since the 1970s, 6 of them killed husbands or lovers. So jurors don't seem to be too sympathetic to cold-blooded killers of husbands or lovers.
And Jami, final point?
Let me also point out with great irony that the first person ever executed in Arizona since it became a state was a woman, believe it or not. That being said, I have to say, Chris, I don't believe this is a death penalty case. I really don't. I know it's a horrific crime, and I do believe that he suffered, but I don't think, even for those of us who believe in the death penalty, that this is a case that rises to that level. And I've talked with a lot of... Well, because I think that we reserve the death penalty for cases of serial killers and terrorists and people who are treasonous against our country. I don't know that this is a woman who would repeat this kind of crime and is a danger to society, especially if she is given life without any possibility of parole. We have to remember that if she goes to prison, she will go. The jury has that option. If they kick it over to the judge, he will have that option. It is life without any possibility of parole. We're not talking about the kind of criminal who we are dealing with in
just on that,
even if you believe
point,
it's a legitimate penalty.
Just on that
Last
point
word, Paul.
for a moment,
Go ahead.
Chris. Yeah, jurors always look at that thing. Will this person kill again if we release her? And I think they would have to say yes. She picked this guy out, got into an affair with him. Who's to say that she wouldn't do it to somebody else? Well, she's going to be in prison someplace. Would there be another prisoner? Will she be out in 25 years because she's so good in prison that a governor decides to pardon her? Very few people really do serve life in the United States.
Right,
and
on the flip side,
notwithstanding.
Though, on the flip side, there is no greater burden to put on a jury than that which is before them right
Indeed.
now. The decision of whether or not to take someone else's life. It is a very heavy burden, and certainly those 12 men and women have a job cut out for them. They did move very quickly to the penalty phase of this, seeing it as cruel. How could you not? What happens next is going to be a very difficult situation for them, especially after listening to those victims, having to go through all the evidence again. Very difficult analysis, but I appreciate the legal points. Paul, Jami, great to see you both. Thank you for joining me here on the Newsroom.
Nice being with you.
Thank you.